Hi everyone, happy Sunday. I'm here with my mom.
Twinsies.
And we're at my childhood home on Long Island, and we're going to be making my mom's famous eggplant parm, which has been a family and friend and crowd favorite for so many years. I remember we had, I think for Thanksgiving, remember in 5th grade, we had to bring something for a potluck for a Thanksgiving feast we had, and we brought eggplant parm, and still people talk about it all the time that had it that day.
Mr. Parm.
My teacher's name that year was Mr. Parmesan. If you're watching, I love you so much. And so how funny is that? So he loved the parm that we made.
And still have to make it for him.
Yep, and all of us. So it's one of the #1 things we request when we come home to visit our family. And so I wanted her to show us how to do it because, you know, traditionally a lot of the old Italian grandmas, like my grandma Anita, they're frying on the stove every individual piece of eggplant, and it's time consuming. It smells up your whole house, and it's just, you know, the oil splashes. It's also a little bit dangerous. So she does it in the oven, and it comes out just as crispy and golden brown, which is why I love this technique. You still get that beautiful texture and flavor without all the mess. So she's gonna show us how to do it. We did pre-do a lot of the eggplant because this does take a little bit of time. You have to do it in shifts depending on how big your oven is. So I just wanted to expedite the process a little bit, but we'll show you how to do 1 tray of the eggplant, and then we'll show you the assembly process, and you guys will be free to do it on your own, but it's really pretty easy. So I'll show you how it's done, or she'll show us how it's done. So what you need for a nice tray about this size, this is 9 by 13, you need about 3 medium to large eggplants. You don't want a very bulbous, super large eggplant because those tend to be super seedy. So just know that when you're shopping for an eggplant, I like to look for a size like this and something that's a little more narrow because I find that the seeds are fewer and also smaller seeds. So what my mom did was she just cut the 2 ends off, and then she's just peeling.
The ends are kind of tough, so you want to cut that off, and it also helps balance the eggplant while you're trying to peel it. It's a little difficult to get the skin off if you've ever peeled an eggplant, but
you can even use a paring knife, but you might lose some of the meat inside. So you try to use a peeler. And then what I can do in this bowl is crack some eggs. So you may have to add more eggs later on depending on how many eggplants you're making. But right now we're only making this 1, so I'm going to crack just 2 eggs. These are just regular large eggs into a bowl. I'm just going to beat them up. And then my mom needs to tell me now the next step. I think she adds something to the eggs. So what do you add to the eggs?
so I like to put a little bit of grated cheese, whatever you have.
So grated Parmigiano Reggiano, just a little bit.
And a little bit, sprinkle of pepper.
And a little black pepper. So we are going to use seasoned breadcrumbs, but you know, she listens to my tips all the time. You season as you go. You season every little element so that the whole dish is super flavorful. So
you don't want to add any salt because the cheese will be salty enough.
Mm-hmm. And
if
the
you have
breadcrumbs
plain breadcrumb, you can make it flavored yourself by adding a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper,
garlic powder,
a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of cheese, some fresh parsley.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that before. If you don't like the seasoned eggplant breading, that's another easy tip.
So now my mom's slicing. So you're making rounds, and look how thick that they are. These are about like a 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, 1/3 of an inch. So not too thick, not too thin. You want to get a nice brown crust and crispy edge, but you also want that kind of creaminess inside. If it's too thin, it'll kind of just get dried out and be almost like a little leathery.
Won't be as juicy.
Won't be as juicy. You want a little creamy juiciness inside with that crispy edge and all that flavor. And the browning, what do we say all the time? I talk about the Maillard reaction. So the browning of food, that's how you get flavor. No brown, no flavor. So we want nice brown color. So she's just slicing this up. And look, even 1 eggplant, this makes a good amount. You don't think 3 eggplants, that's not that much. It's going to make a whole tray. So now we'll continue our breading process. So we have our 4C breadcrumbs. These are our favorite types of breadcrumbs. I just think this brand makes a nice flavored breadcrumb. I think it has so many great spices, herbs. I think there's even a little pecorino cheese. And so you just pour this. We have wax paper. I usually like to use wax paper. You can just toss it. Makes it easier for cleanup. And now you just dunk it in that egg mixture. So that was just egg, black pepper, and a little bit of that Parmigiano Reggiano. Take your fingers, do a nice dunk, and then just bread it. And then set it aside. And we'll continue on, but my mom is gonna show you now what you're gonna do with the oil. So we use canola oil, or you can use vegetable oil, that's fine. Why we're using that is because it's a neutral oil. Olive oil has a lower smoke point. So that means that it may get a bitter flavor when you heat it up, and it might burn a little bit too. This is more neutral. It takes a lot to really get super smoky and bitter for this type of oil. This is a great frying oil. It's very neutral. And so that's why we're using canola oil. And so if you saw, she's doing a nice coating. There's a good amount of oil. If you want to come close here, there's a good amount of oil. You should see it kind of swimming around the pan. So we're basically going to be shallow frying in the oven. So I'm just going to continue.
I wouldn't put them in though right away because I think it'll just absorb the grease.
Right. So
sometimes you can even heat the pan up and the oil a little bit while you're waiting. If you have time, you can heat that up a little bit. It'll prevent it from soaking in a lot of the oil.
But if not, just do what I'm doing here. So bread them, and then, here, you want to help me? Bread them, and then set it aside, and then we'll put it on the oily pan. Do we have any questions so far? I know it's a gorgeous day, so people are probably like, I'm not watching this right now, but you know what, guys? It's so great that we're together, so now I can actually save this video. I'll put it on YouTube as well. I'll put it on my website, gotroomformore.com, and you guys will be able to tune in whenever you'd like and make this with your family. And so while we're doing this, we can also explain the tomato sauce. So we made our own homemade, and I do have a recipe on my website. It says meatballs and tomato sauce. You just need the sauce without the meatballs, but of course, if you want to make the meatballs too, that's fine. But you just need that basic tomato sauce recipe, something that just has a little bit of onion, garlic, basil, and the canned crushed fresh tomato. Just something nice and bright and fresh. And so we have here, I don't know, how many cups of sauce? Maybe 4 cups?
Well, those were 2 large cans.
Okay,
so
2 large cans of crushed tomato. I think those are like 32-ounce cans, maybe? 28-ounce cans. All right. And then for the mozzarella cheese, you can use shredded, or you can use the block, like the Palio brand, or fresh mozzarella. Anything goes there as well. Sometimes what I like to do is use the shredded within the layers and then do the fresh sliced up on top when we cook it. We could do that. And you also want to make sure there's some fresh basil in your sauce. If you don't have it in and you have some basil, throw it in now. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna wipe my hands. I'm gonna wash my hands quick while you do that. So Mom, show them how you put it on the tray.
Really very easy. You're just frying in the oven. We set the oven to, I have a convection oven, so mine is set to 405 degrees. If yours isn't convection, you might want to go for 420. You have to try it out with your oven, but you want it to act like it's frying in a frying pan, very hot.
And you want to make sure that they're not on top of each other. They're spaced out a little bit. That also will help them brown and cook evenly. And now we're going to put these in the oven. So again, this is convection, so it's on 405. And do you flip them midway?
You can, and before I forgot to flip them, and they
still they were great.
They're nice and crispy on both sides. So
you don't really need to. So how long are we going to cook these?
Well, at least 15 to 20 minutes.
All right, so let's set it for 15 minutes. But we have a bunch done so that we can show you guys how to assemble it. And then it's just a quick assembly process, and then you bake it and you're ready to go. We love to eat ours with a big, nice piece of Italian bread and make like a sandwich with it, or you can just eat it on its own. You can serve it over some spaghetti, whatever you like. So now we're gonna assemble. All right, Mom, ready for the assembly?
Yeah. She's
already cleaning. She's forgetting that we're on camera. She's cleaning up.
You have to wash your hands. I have to wash my hands.
All right. I thought you were cleaning dishes.
No.
Okay,
right,
so show us the process here.
We're gonna just be layering everything. We're gonna begin with a little bit of tomato sauce at the bottom.
So our tomato sauce has a little bit of chunks, which is great, but smooth is fine in this too. It really doesn't matter. So very thin layer.
Right, you don't want too much, you don't want it to be soggy.
Yeah. I hate when you go to a restaurant and you have eggplant parm and it comes in like a casserole dish or a lasagna in a casserole dish. And it's just like swimming in sauce, a couple noodles swimming in tomato sauce, no texture. You need to make sure the layers are thin. Also, this is sliceable. You get a nice, beautiful slab. I love that. So now, so tomato sauce, you do one layer of the eggplant.
Okay, then we should have that bowl.
Here, I'll get you that bowl.
Okay, I'd like to put this in a bowl with a little spoon, please.
That's
While we're waiting, we're going to put, again, a little more sauce. My sauce, I just put a little bit of sweet onion. I put a little garlic, sauteed that so it was nice and soft. Threw in my tomatoes, added a little pinch of sugar, always a secret.
A pinch of sugar balances out the acidity.
A little bit of red pepper.
Red pepper flakes.
Black pepper.
B. Rossi wants to know, should the tomato sauce be hot?
It does not have to be. Actually, ours we made a couple hours ago and it's room temperature. So it does not have to be hot. It can be hot or cold. You're going to be cooking this in the oven again, so it'll all come together. But I wouldn't recommend it being ice cold out of the fridge. So you might want to just bring it to room temp, but hot or room temperature is great.
So we put some grated cheese, whatever you like.
So very small sprinkle. Remember, you're making layer after layer. So if you put a tremendous amount of Parmesan cheese at this stage, it's going to end up too salty, not balanced. So make sure you do a little bit each way. So now she's using the shredded mozzarella cheese. This one we got from Costco. It's part skim, low moisture. I think it always comes out perfect. But again, if you have slices, just do very thin slices.
And a little bit of pepper we put on. And now we're going to do, again, we're going to put the eggplant, layering it nicely, trying to keep it without being overlapping, the best you can.
And this eggplant, even if you just want to do the eggplant like this and eat this as is, it is so enjoyable. You can even make a dipping sauce. You can even put like a Middle Eastern twist on it and make like a yogurt sauce or a tahini sauce and dip it in. It's so good. A lemon aioli. This is my favorite way to eat eggplant. Eggplant's my favorite vegetable. And it's funny because my husband never liked eggplant ever until he started dating me, and then he had my mom's eggplant and he loves it now because when it's prepared properly, it's so good. Another thing I wanted to mention is the skin. We peel the skin off and a lot of people don't, but I do find that eggplant has very tough skin and it ends up ruining the texture for me. And I feel like you're chewing on it, you're choking on it. I don't know, I don't like it. So I think it's great to have, I think it's crispier too without the skin.
Dina wants to know if you put pepper on every layer.
I do.
Yeah, a little bit.
Little bit.
Tiny sprinkle.
Not a lot. It actually doesn't get spicy or anything. You'll be surprised.
My family's not big on spicy, so it's just mild.
My mom, when she made eggplant, still does, because it's my brother's favorite way. It's not breaded. She just cooks it in the frying pan, and then she puts a little sauce and cheese and pepper, and
so you can even
just like that.
Leave out the breading completely if you're gluten-free. Or I think actually 4C makes a gluten-free seasoned breadcrumb. So if that's something you're worried about, you can definitely find gluten-free breadcrumbs. Or like she just said, my grandma just fries it in the pan with no breading.
Mike and Carol Tafalis say hello.
Hello. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hope you're enjoying this beautiful day.
Getting the secret here.
They said best third grade teacher.
Aww. Love you. And we have the same birthday, July 2nd.
Coming up. Can we tell everyone how old you're going to be this year?
No, we can skip that.
My mom's having a big birthday this year. You'd never guess what year.
40.
No. Then you had me when you were 10.
Yeah, pretty much.
We both had our big birthdays this year. I turned 30 this year, but she turned 35. Any other questions, guys? So while you do the pepper, I'll do the cheese.
We'll put a little bit of pepper.
Okay. Little mutts. just stick these right on top, no?
No, we
One more
have
layer?
another whole pan.
Oh, right. We could just make it more layers, huh?
Well,
What?
it has to fit without going over.
I think it'll be. Maybe. So you do want it, it's your preference. I like mine nice and thick, so we're gonna go right to the top of this pan. But it's your preference. But yeah, we're gonna have probably a little extra. It depends on the size of your eggplant. But you can even just put it in a small dish or a ramekin. You can even make individual ones in small ramekins.
And if you put it in a Pyrex, if you don't have a lot of time, you can easily put it in the microwave. Just cover it with some plastic wrap, which I'm not keen on, but you can do that. Heat it up in the microwave very quickly.
And it just melts everything together?
It just melts, comes right together. Also, when you want to reheat it, you can reheat it in the microwave.
Yeah, that's what I suggest actually. If after you cook it and eat it and enjoy it and you have leftovers, just cut yourself a little slab, put it on a dish in the microwave for maybe 1 minute, and it'll be perfect, like you just made it. So we can check on our eggplant, but it has a few more minutes. I don't think we're gonna wait for it, but we'll show. Actually, we probably should show them what it looks like. So let's see what it looks like in the oven right now. If you want to follow us over here. So look at it. It's already starting to brown. The oil's bubbling up all around it. That's perfect. It's really starting to fry in there. So it probably needs another 7 to 8 minutes before it's done. But we'll let that go. And now, so Mom, do you finish, what should the top layer be?
So the top layer is going to be the same. We're going to put a little bit of tomato sauce, cheese, pepper, and the grated mozzarella cheese, or if you want to put fresh mozzarella cheese, and that's it. And pop it in the oven, covered with foil.
Tin foil, okay.
Otherwise it dries out, and maybe half an hour. And you can test it with a fork or a spoon. Just
you just want to make sure it's hot all the way through, and that the cheese is melted all the way through. So you know what we can do while we're waiting for that eggplant? Should we slice some fresh mozzarella to put on the top layer? Sure. All right, so we bought a ginormous, you'll see, it's like the size of a child's head. We'll cut it up. I'm gonna grab me the small cutting board. So look at this.
Dina wants to know how much it costs to get a tray.
So although this looks simple to make, it is messy and time consuming. It's not my favorite meal to make, but
I think doing it in the oven it expedites the whole process and makes it so much less messy. You used to be standing at the stove. Yes. I gotta open this and let me do it here. Juicing everywhere. So this is what I'm gonna do, guys, for the top layer. I'm gonna do the fresh mozzarella. I do find the shredded melts really nice and gives you that cheese pull, that gooey cheese pull. So I think it's better to have the shredded in between the layers, and then just do a nice thin layer of this sliced fresh mozzarella on top. Just for aesthetic too, it looks really great. All right. So we're just gonna slice some thin layers. And we have some fresh basil too. We could even put a little fresh basil. And look, just thin, because we want to make sure everything's balanced. We don't want it to seem like just a tray of melted cheese, although that's great too sometimes. That should be enough, but maybe one more. Looks awesome. Set that aside. Now, are there any questions while we're waiting for the eggplant to fry up in the oven? I do want to show you guys. But if you have any questions, ask away. It could be about anything.
Dina wants to know how hot should the oven be for the whole tray?
Oh, for the whole tray,
I would say 300 to 375 on my oven. I'd probably do like 365.
so I would do for something like that, 350 to 375. Because you want it to heat through without burning the edges and burning the cheese. You want the cheese to be nice and gooey. So I would say slower and lower is better. So I would probably go 350 on that. And we have convection, like we said, it's a little more powerful. The heat circulates a little better. So it seems to cook a bit faster, but I would say 350. And she said about 30 minutes.
Yeah, but you have to test it. But make sure it's covered.
Covered with foil. Do you ever take the foil off, or the whole process?
The whole process.
Without the foil, the cheese will just brown, right? You get that skin. I hate
and
that.
dry out. So you could show what it would look like. We're probably going to add maybe 2 more slices, but
Sure. I'm thinking, you know what? I think if you're gonna add a little more fresh basil than what was in the tomato sauce, I'm gonna put it underneath the cheese so that it doesn't just brown and burn. So this is how you're gonna slice up, I'll show you guys, the basil. So you put the basil leaves flat on each other, like this, and now you're going to roll. Just roll it up tightly. And basil's very sensitive, if you will, and very soft and browns very easily. And so you want your knife to have as little contact with the herb as possible. So you just want to cut one time through. You don't want to be hacking through it. So you want to just roll it up and then just make thin slices, and it'll make these beautiful little ribbons of basil. And you want to make sure your knife is very sharp, or else it'll bruise your herbs. And this goes for any type of herb, but basil tends to brown more easily than others. And now I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of that basil right on top here.
Nisha wants to know what your favorite meal is that Mom makes.
Ooh, this is definitely one of them. I'd say it's a toss-up between eggplant parm, just homemade tomato sauce, and meatballs. I make it great too, but there's just something about it when your mom makes it that it's just even better. And, oh, there's so many things.
Chicken cutlets.
Oh, chicken cutlets. Just a breaded, and actually using the 4C breadcrumbs again, breaded, but she makes them so thin and pounded perfectly. There's never weird, chewy pieces, just like perfectly cooked. I don't know. They're just perfect.
So fry that in the combination of canola and olive oil, which I think gives it a really
Maybe we'll have to do that next. We'll have to do chicken cutlets one day. So I chopped up the basil, we chiffonade the herbs, and now I'm just gonna do the slices of mozzarella. And again, these are pretty thin. And I'm gonna let a little bit of that eggplant shine through because it will melt, and also we wanna make sure we can see what the star of this dish is, right? So just layer that like that. I hope you guys are making this today. I mean, this is also great because you don't have to bake this right away. So my mom will often assemble it like this, and then you can just wrap it in plastic wrap, pop it in your fridge, and then really save it for maybe 2-3 days even if you wanted, and then heat it up later on and bake it. So you don't even have to bake it right now. All right.
Someone asked if you heated the oil up first. They missed that part.
We did not. We did not heat the oil. The oven, though, should be preheated. That's very important. And then you just put a good amount of canola or vegetable oil on your pan. If you should see the oil moving around, it should definitely be a nice amount of oil. How's it doing in there?
Close to being done.
Okay. I'll show you guys what it looks like.
Someone asked how long the eggplant should go in the oven for before the sauce.
So with these pieces?
Yeah.
So these take about 15 to 20 minutes. So this, I put it on for 15 minutes and they look like they're almost done. So I would say 15 to 17 minutes should be perfect. It really depends on your oven, but on a nice high temperature, should be great at 15 to 20 minutes max. And just as long as it's nice and crispy on the edge. But remember, we're just cutting those pieces of eggplant like 1/3 of an inch thick. Mm-hmm. Not too thick, not too thin. You want to get the right thickness so you get the creamy, tender center and the crispy outside. Yeah, so we're almost there. We'll wait 2 minutes. We'll take those out and we'll show you guys the final steps. And then we're gonna pop it in the oven, and then I'll post on my stories later on, guys, the finished product so you can see this delicious, delicious eggplant parm. And this is also a technique. You can do this exact technique with chicken and make chicken parm.
Sure.
Exact technique. You just have to make sure the chicken cutlets are pretty much cooked through, although you're gonna cook it again in the oven, so it probably will be around the same amount of time. If they're thin, yeah, very, very easy. Simple breading. These are just great techniques too. If you learn how to make a nice tomato sauce, if you know how to do a simple breading, that goes a long way.
So simple.
So simple.
Can you repeat what goes in the sauce again?
So I have a recipe on gotroomformore.com for tomato sauce if you want to check it out, but we just pretty much do a yellow onion, like a nice sweet onion or Vidalia onion even. Just
Maybe
a little
like
bit.
my onion was this big, my Vidalia, so I just used like 1/4 of that, and I sliced it and diced it very small, and then I put in 3 cloves of garlic, I sauteed it till everything was super soft. Then I threw in my tomatoes.
How many cans?
A little bit of
Two
bread.
cans. You did 2 cans of crushed tomato. We like the San Marzano crushed tomato. It has a great sweet but bright flavor.
Black pepper, salt, a little bit of sugar, basil, red pepper flakes.
So the sugar, guys, maybe a teaspoon max. It's just to balance out the acidity. You don't always need it, but usually when a tomato sits in a can, it does get a little bit more acidic, I feel like. It takes on the metallic flavor, I feel like, of the can.
So like you always need a little bit
out.
of sugar in your sauce.
I think that you can even smell when it's done. That's what before my mom was making a batch so we could get it going, and I was upstairs and I knew that it was ready to go because you can smell it just penetrating through the house, the best smell.
So you want to get it out of the pan quickly so it doesn't absorb the grease.
So you just put it, okay, yeah, let's show them how to do this.
So I set up a rack. I have some paper towels.
So just come closer over here. Look how nice and golden. This was just 15 minutes, guys, on convection. And the oil is still nice and hot, but she said you want to get these off right away so they don't continue to just absorb that oil. So this is a wire rack. She just puts them right on paper towels to absorb any excess grease, just to retain that crispiness. All right. And then we'll finish just layering our eggplant, and we're gonna have extra. Actually, this made a little bit more than we anticipated, so you can just make another small tray. If you have a little loaf pan, you can just make another small tray of it. These look great. And we didn't even have to flip these, guys. This is so low maintenance, so easy. Nice and golden and crispy, and we didn't even flip them. One layer in the oven, done. You didn't slave over the stove, super easy. So now, you know what, I'm gonna move this over to there. Okay. So we just have a couple more pieces to add. So I'm just gonna fill in these little holes here.
So this is my son-in-law Mel's favorite dish, and now it's his son's favorite dish, my grandson.
We need to get him in
He
here.
loves eggplant parm, so there's never any left over.
What?
Okay.
All right, and final little layer of cheese. And you know, we'll put another, you can even just rip your basil, guys, if you don't want to cut it. You're not great with a knife. Ripping the basil is also a great technique. I like to cut it in the thin strips just because I think it kind of makes it a little easier to chew and distributes more evenly, but it doesn't matter. And that's it. So now we're gonna pop it in the oven. So we're gonna put our oven on 350, but we're gonna cover it with foil. Put it in the oven for about 30 minutes until everything is melted together and melded together. And then you're ready to enjoy it. We serve ours with nice crusty Italian bread that's toasted nicely. You eat it on the bread. You can just eat it on its own, and it is perfection. So Julie's gonna show us the bread. That's what we have. Usually we have a different bread, but that's pretty much all they have right now in the store. All right, show you over here. We're just covering it with foil before we put it in the oven. Pop it in 350.
And we're good to go.
And that's it. So guys, I'm gonna show you when ours is done cooking. I'm gonna come back on my stories, not live, but I'll just post it on my stories and I'll show you the final product. But
Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your enjoy your eggplant parm. And you can make chicken parm with this too. Enjoy. Thanks guys. Happy Sunday. All right guys, came out of the oven. Everything is nice and melty and melded together. I'm gonna slice up a chunk for you so you can see what it looks like inside. Look at that. Beautiful layers of that crispy eggplant with the fresh tomato sauce, gooey melty mozzarella cheese, a little bit of that Parmesan. Looks so good. I cannot wait to dig in. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Happy Sunday.